So hey, how do you actually have a spiritual awakening? It's a great question, and one for many people that remains totally unanswered. Now, for me, there are sort of two ways this happens. One is one big giant awakening, which is unbelievably rare, to be very honest. It doesn't normally happen like that. What for most people happens is it's a series of small increments. In other words, a gradual expansion of your consciousness, your awareness. Many people describe this as an awakening. So one of my analogies is, imagine you had a sort of 100-story office block. Now, in the lower offices is where most people hang out. It's where most people live. Their awareness of a bigger part of themselves is what I tend to call switched off. So, for example, if you're on the 5th floor, you tend to think there are only 5 floors. Well, actually, there are 100 floors. So you look out of the window, and from the 5th floor, you look at everything and you see it as you see it, and you think, because you don't know there's another 95 floors, you think that's all there is. And suddenly you become aware there's like a 6th floor or a 7th floor. So you go and get into the lift. Maybe let's say you go to the 7th floor, and suddenly you look out of the window, and believe it or not, things look different from the 7th floor than they look from the 5th floor. So all that's happened is you've awakened to a different view, okay? And a spiritual awakening is basically when you become more aware of the spiritual part of you. So most people are sort of okay with believing that we're made up of mind, body and spirit, but for the most part, whilst we might arrive in the world with all of these things switched on, over time what happens through social programming is our spiritual dial gets turned down until it clicks into the off position, and what we're left with is a mind that is like trapped on the earthly plane and a body to go with it. Now, this then shuts off your spiritual part of yourself. So a spiritual awakening is simply reawakening a part of you that's there but inadvertently got switched off. And what happens for most people is that they the first job is to realize you've got this switch and to turn it on. And that would happen as you have an awakening, yeah? So people say to me, what was your first spiritual awakening? And to be honest, there were sort of 3 things. There were 3 things for me. Probably the biggest of those 3 things is, even though I was 47 years old, I've been married for 18 years and got 3 amazing young lads in my life, my kids, you know, and when somebody said to me or asked me what the 4-letter word love meant to me, I realised my awakening was that the meaning I gave to that simple 4-letter word was very restrictive. And what I realised was that actually I'd always seeked to get love from outside of myself and then experience that love. But my awakening was to have the realization that actually the love was inside of me, and I needed to connect with that love. So connecting with an inner love that's in abundance in every human being, and then sharing that with others, is a completely different model of love than trying to grab bits of love off of other people. So that is an awakening to the realization that love isn't potentially what we thought it was. So you could ask yourself, what does the word love mean to me? I've asked this to hundreds and hundreds of people. I asked them to write it down. And interestingly enough, whilst people write similar things, nobody ever really writes the same thing as somebody else. So this very important little word, which we give meaning to, can be seen through different eyes, different experiences. So from a sort of like, let's go to the 50th floor, and look at the word love, we would absolutely look out of those windows and see that love is everywhere. It's what I call inside and all around us. But when I was down on the 5th floor, it looked like the only way that I could get love was to get it from somebody else. So that was my very first spiritual awakening. My second one was to realize that I, down on the 5th floor, had a set of beliefs that really did not serve me. So I had what I always call a view of the world. Some people call it a model of the world that actually I stuck to very stringently. In other words, if you didn't have the same model of the world as I have, then you were obviously, your model was faulty and my model was correct. And I realized that that is locked in by a set of beliefs. And I realized that my beliefs were giving me my experience of life. So I awakened to the fact that actually maybe some of my beliefs were not serving me, and maybe they were not actually good for the people around me. My friends, my family, my work colleagues, everybody that I met and touched were having an experience of my model of life, model of the world. So that was a big realization for me, and this literally takes you up that building and you look out at a different view completely to when you're down low going, my model of the world is it, yours is crap, you need to change your model of the world to my model of the world. So for me, this is what an awakening is, and it, as I say, can be in little increments. I literally had those two realizations over about a 48-hour period, and then it took me probably a year or so, maybe even 18 months, to install a new set of beliefs, a view from the 50th window. That then gave me a new model of the world that worked not only for me, but it started to work for the people that I met and touched. And I met a whole new bunch of people, because up on the 50th floor is a whole different set of people with these different view of life, this different way of looking at life. They've got the spiritual dial switched on, it's not turned on necessarily full. There's always more stories that you can go, and when you get on the roof, then obviously you've got a whole different view. That would be somebody maybe that's fully awakened spiritually, their dial's on full, in fact all their switches are switched on, dial's fully on, and they have this sort of balance of life which is very different. So let me ask you a question. If you have had a spiritual awakening of any description, what might that have been for you? And what as you look forward in your life, what else would you like to have happen that maybe is not happening now, that could be because you've got a set of beliefs that prevents you having that happen? So what might you need to be looking for in terms of a spiritual awakening that would take you up those floors in that building? So that's it from me, Tony Vee from the 10-10 movement, moving us towards living a more 10 out of 10 life experience. If this is your first time on the 10-10 movement videos, then please, well, a big welcome to start with, and if you're returning, welcome back, of course. And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do that now, and also hit the notification bell, so when we put new videos out, which we do twice a week, you will get a notification that there's a new video to help you live a more 10-10 lifestyle. So it's bye from me for now.